Study session of October 12th, 2021 is called to order. Donna, let's see who's here tonight.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Peterson.
It's down to
Councilmember Bode.
here.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Here.
Councilmember Inesco.
Here.
Mayor Dorsey.
Here.
Councilmember Feast.
Here.
Oh, there you are. Good. And Councilmember McDowell.
Present.
We are
All
all
right.
here and accounted for, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Our first study session item is about pavement condition ratings. Public Works Director Jay Harris has information to share with us. Hi, Jay.
Hi, good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council. Jay Harris, your Public Works Director. I'm going to share my screen here. So tonight we're going to talk about our pavement preservation program and go over a bunch of things, sort of what are pavement conditions, how do we rate our pavement around the city, and sort of where we are with funding right now and where we might need to be with funding in a few years, especially with the Transportation Benefit District getting closed out in 2016. So the first slide here, you'll see that this is Park Street right before the overlay, really rutted, really cracked. This is the back of the asphalt paver. He checks the depth. That's what he checks that was 3 inches. So they don't want to put down too much or not enough, right? Our inspectors will get all over them if it's not enough, right? So they go along and they probe and check to make sure the machine's putting out about the right amount. So pavement conditions. So a newly paved road like Park Street is very good. When you overlay a road, it never achieves 100. A brand new road would have a PCI of 100, but we're overlaying and rehabbing a lot of roads. So generally, like Park Street's at a 95 again. So after 15 years or so, you can see this is still in really good shape. Low volume residential roadway. You see the longitudinal cracking. There isn't much transverse cracking here. This is when you start, so if you don't seal these joints up with sealant, you start getting water into the joints, and then the pavement starts to degrade even quicker and it starts to crack, alligator out on you. That's still fair condition, and a chip seal, a crack seal, chip seal would work out really good for something like this. This would be more of a slurry seal, maybe a chip seal. When you get down here in the poor condition, this is where you got to do a Park Street sort of thing. It's a grind and inlay or rehab with fabric and that sort of thing. When you get here, this is what 14th looked like when we got to it this year. This isn't a picture of it, but it looked very similar to that. Very, very poor conditions. And then obviously you got gravel roads. So the pavement condition index goes from 100 from a brand new road all the way to 0. Which is a gravel road. So I was talking about crack sealing. This keeps the water out of the base rock. So the pavement, asphalt pavement is on top of the base rock. You let water in there and then trucks drive on it. And over time, it will crack even more and really degrade the structure quickly. Another step is we fog seal this. So we can crack seal it and then put a fog sealant on it. That takes care of the micro cracking. And then also, like on our chip seal project on 13th this year, we put down the rock into the oil and then also fog sealed it to provide a layer of asphalt on the top in that instance. This is an example of a slurry seal. So I'm going from this is what you should be doing every year to a lot of roads to on a pretty good road, you'd fog seal it, to you do a slurry seal next, which is oil mixed with sand for the most part. So you can see we crack sealed beforehand, and then we put down the slurry sealant. The road looks near brand new when you're done. It doesn't have, since it's just sand and oil, it doesn't have a a high wearing surface to it. So if the wearing surface was in pretty good shape to begin with, this just seals it off and gives you another 10 years of life. This is 13th Avenue chip seal is the next stage of improvements we're doing or preservation. And then overlays, this is what we did on Park Street. You see sometimes there's a lot of work behind a paver. I don't know if you've ever sat and watched a lot of paving, any of you, but these guys work really hard for their money. Moving that asphalt around, you know, behind the paver, sometimes they dump a little bit too much or whatever, and they got to get it all smoothed out. So this is an overlay. The next, when you have to maintain an elevation where you see like a curb here, there's a curb over here, you have these railroad tracks, you can't add height to the pavement. You got to grind it out of there. And so that starts getting terribly expensive. So you grind that out and then you put it back in again. And then the worst case is full depth replacement. This is Turner Avenue from 2018 when it was completed. This picture is from a little earlier than that, but they went in and pulled out the pavement. Well, they ground up all the pavement, mixed it in with the rock, cleaned it up, and then put a bunch more asphalt down on the top of it. So this went too long, right? So what happens is this is very expensive, these items, whereas these maintenance items are actually pretty cost effective. So, you know, the difference from a slurry seal to full depth replacement can be 4x on costs. So generally you crack seal the road every 3 to 5 years. You fog and slurry seal coat every 7 to 10. Chip seals last a little longer because they're a little bigger aggregate in it. After a while, once you do a bunch of slurry or chip seals or fog seals, usually you have to overlay down the road, especially on collector roadways that get a lot of wear and tear. Local streets, maybe not as much. And then the full depth replacement of a pavement system is when the surface is really fractured and that the base rock can be inadequate. Maybe there wasn't enough rock under there, and the whole section is at end of service life. And it gives the longest service life, but it also is the most expensive. So the maintenance intervals between when you maintain pavement, like with crack sealant or slurry sealant, and when you do full depth type of replacement project is pretty variable. It's the classification, traffic volume, subgrade, that's the soil that is laying on, and the design of the original pavement structure. So the roads with higher traffic volume, speeds and loads, they require more maintenance, and that's pretty intuitive, right? That we need to stay on the collectors and arterials. Those are the main throughput roadways. And so we need to really concentrate on those. So the pavement condition index. So remember, it's 100 down to 0. 100 is perfect, and gravel is at 0. So in 2020, we did a citywide pavement study, and we had an average of 69, which is good, fair range. It's a C, right? And a lot of people in school, right? A C is okay. But when you're going down the roadway and you're hitting potholes a lot and that sort of thing, you know, we should be up into the 70s would be what my goal would be over 10 years or so. To climb your way out of a spiraling hole of pavement condition index costs money and it takes time. So you can see here that, you know, we're somewhere in this range right here. So we got a lot of pavement in the next, you know, 5 to 10 years that is going to drop off the cliff quickly. So this up here is you spend a couple of bucks on just preventive maintenance up here. And if you wait too long, that's that 4X that I was talking about, that as you get out there ways, if you're not doing preventive maintenance, you're going to spend a lot more on that block of roadway down the roadway, down the road. I didn't intend that pun. So the goal is to do more maintenance and less reconstruction. So here's the map from the 2020 pavement condition index. So again, it was an average of 69. And you can see the green is excellent, 86 to 100. And then gravel is shown as real light gray. And then the very rough roads are in red. So you can see we got a lot of rough roads up in different areas. It's good to see a lot of green on the map though too. And so generally the roads that are the magentas and the yellows, those are the ones that we want to get out, crack seal, slurry seal, keep them from turning into the red road, the cyan or red roads. So the goal is to work in this region here. The problem is the people that live on these roads aren't very happy that you're out fixing a road that looks okay, if you know what I mean. But it's like the roof on your house. You don't let it start leaking and, then go and then you got to do sheeting and, structural repairs and whatever. You got to keep on these roads in this range and then get to these when you can, or else you're going to be spending a lot of money here. So the goal is to be working more up in this range. And volumes first though, right? That we stay on the higher volume roadways. That's where we're getting the most traffic and the most wear. So budget. So this is the street fund. This is in your budget book that you just saw the other night. That we have a beginning fund balance. We got a lot of projects going on. The ending fund balance, we're going to work on that. Remember, it's just a preliminary budget proposal right now. We need to meet the minimum fund balance, I think, is 16% on the street fund. So finance knows that, they're working on that. But you can see the number of staff here we have in the street fund. We have a field supervisor, that's Todd Rhodes, an operator out there helping him, a truck driver, and a maintenance worker. And we're light, probably an assistant field supervisor here, or an assistant superintendent, and down the road, probably another maintenance tech. I mean, these are the guys out there, doing the crack sealing, they're doing the signs, they're doing sidewalk grinding. Oh, I mean, it just never ends. All the mowing that you see in the right of way. Very good, very busy department for only 5 people or 4.9 people. So down the road, we need to, and as we gain more miles of roadway, we definitely need to be very cognizant about the number of people that we have out there. So the Capital Resources Fund is where we put in money for the street projects. And so got the big project for next year will be Western Gateway. So that's the REIT funds go in there. So these are the real estate excise taxes. And then the traffic impact fees, we're getting about $80,000 a year. Remember, the traffic impact fees will go up. Maybe if you have a big hotel or Fred Meyer's or something that goes in, that those impact fees will go up, but they only can use them for capacity projects though. And then the general fund transfers some revenue in also to help out. So here's the Capital Resources Fund, some of the stuff we're doing in 2022. So traffic impact fees, this is a capacity improvement, Western Gateway, we're going to send some money in for the widening and sidewalks and that sort of thing. There's some bond refunding payment that's happening. The water fund is paying at $1.1 million for the water. That's the American Recovery Act funds. And the American Recovery Act funds also helping us out on the storm drainage for Western Gateway. Also some going to the AMR program for water and sewer. And then you go down here, so Civic Center, we're sending in a transportation benefit district for the parking lot out there. That's the paver discussion that we had the other night. That's for the alley part of the lot, not the lot itself. And then Brockdale Road, that's our match for our federal funds match. That'll also be transportation benefit district. And then we're getting $770,000 for safe routes to school. This is our match for that of TBD. And then we also are sending in some TBD to finish off Western Gateway. So these bigger projects, there's a fund of source of fundings are mixed between water, sewer, the streets, obviously, capacity. So it gets a little complex here in the public works world of, how to get these bigger projects funded. But at the end, we should be able to pull them off. Does anybody have any questions about this slide? I know there's a lot of information there. So here's some summary statements. So the street fund provides for the maintenance and operation of the largest asset of the city. It's probably about 130 million, I'm thinking, maybe 150 million. It's big money, you know, and this has been put, you know, the roads have been built since the 1900s. Obviously, we paved a bunch of them. Some of them are still gravel, but it's a very large asset. So to properly operate and maintain the street system, we need a few additional staff members, and then also some contract services, some other materials, purchase some new equipment, that sort of thing. To maintain the existing pavement index, we're going to need more money into the fund. It was estimated that we need about 1 million to 1.2 million in going to projects. And right now we're about $580,000 a year. So we need to double the amount of money going into pavement projects to maintain and to probably creep up the pavement condition index over the next 10 years. So locally acquired street fund is the largest source of revenue for most cities in Washington, not state or federal funds. We've been very successful though recently in getting a bunch of different types of grants. So you know, kudos to Jeff and the legislators and all of our work that we've done there. One of our main revenue sources is the state motor fuel tax is decreasing. People aren't driving as many miles each year, about 10% less. Some of that's due to COVID. And then more fuel efficient cars mean they're not paying as much tax. And the electric vehicles also. The state of Washington is looking at different mechanisms to capture. We'll be paying the lane mile tax in the next 5 years, and the fuel tax will probably be going away down the road. So most cities in Washington, Oregon included, same funding situation, that the street fund is not well funded. So the TBD Transportation Benefit District will sunset in 2026. And then 40% of the pavement in the city is fair to good condition. Maintenance of these should be a priority to defer the higher replacement costs later. And anyways, the proper preventive maintenance will keep you out of full reconstruction. And then being planned and proactive with our projects reduces our reactive labor and material costs for the street maintenance division. What that means is a lot of that is the pothole guys. In the middle of the winter, when it starts raining, we get into pothole mode and we're out all the time, you know, filling potholes. Well, these guys could be doing other things, right? And so as the pavement condition index goes up, our reactive maintenance goes down, which allows us to be more proactive to help the pavement condition index continue to go up, right? Pothole repairs are good, but they're a lot of work. And then improve well-maintained streets, increase livability, decrease automobile maintenance costs. That's your car. When you hit potholes and stuff, it affects your car, right? Improves property values and the business activity for the whole community. So here's some city street funding comparisons that I pulled out of a report that was done for Washington State. So, you know, there's local improvement districts, there's commercial parking area taxes. We have the transportation benefit district. You have to have retail transactions, obviously, to do that. So you have the sales and use tax TBD, you have the vehicle licensing fee TBD. We're the sales tax version of that. We do have traffic impact fees in our community. Note that those haven't been updated since 2017, and we're probably going to at least look at an inflationary increase for those. We probably should be doing it every year. And then eventually when I get done with a updated transportation system plan that's scheduled for 2023, we'll look at the traffic impact fees again and make sure the calculation is correct. So then we have local sources, we have property taxes, B&O taxes, retail and sales and use taxes, and then some utility taxes. We already are doing the REITs. So anyway, so this is sort of the menu of financing. So also some that aren't up here would be like a street utility fee. I did one of those at my former job. And what that was, it was a trip generation fee that was added onto your utility bill. And so like McDonald's generates a lot of trips, and they, were sending a significant amount of money to the city. The residential property owners were at, I think it was $17 a month. So anyways, that was a very stable funding mechanism. The payment condition index there was quite a bit lower, and the street fund only had $150,000 on projects in Newburgh, not 580. So it had significant issues in terms of funding. So at least we do have some funding here, is good news, right? One other thing is you can also do a bond measure just for street improvements, for very specific improvements. The city of McMinnville did that. That could be widening of a roadway. That could be repaving of Olympic Highway North. You do like a 8-10 year bond measure, and you say, here are the deliverables. Here's what the rate you would pay on your property taxes for this bond measure, and you put it out to a vote of the people. So here's some policy considerations. So this is how we're currently prioritizing street projects. That preventive maintenance projects on arterial and collector roadways with fair to good pavement condition indexes are number one. That's crack sealing and maybe some chip sealing, that sort of thing. Maybe some minor overlays here and there. Sometimes you see people, you patch like the wheel paths only, those sort of things to try to get the mileage out of our higher volume roadways, and keep them together a little longer. So then the next one would be pavement maintenance projects on local roadways. These are lower volume roads with fair to good PCI indexes. And then the third would where you rehabilitate or reconstruct the arterial collector roadways. Those are the high volume roadways. Those are the ones that we count on, our community counts on, right? You can navigate a pretty poor road getting out to your house, right? But when you have an arterial roadway with a lot of holes in it, it's a problem, right? People go slower, you get a lot more damage to cars, on and on and on. And then D is where we get on the local roadways and pick off the ones with failed or poor pavement recondition index or pavement condition indexes. And then the last one is gravel roadways. That's down at the bottom of the list. Unfortunately, the city started out with gravel roads, obviously, got a lot of them paved. Some of them still aren't done. And, we look at a different financing mechanism down the road for the gravel roadways and try to figure something out. We were considering local improvement districts at the last city I worked at, and a 50-50 match. The city would put up 50% of the paving and the property owners would put up 50%. And I left, I don't know where it quite went after that, but it seems something at least to talk about, right? So then note that when we're doing like the Lake Boulevard project down on the bottom right here, we go in and make sure the sewer is competent under the road, the water lines look good, storm drainage is always something we're doing, and that we get a hold of the franchise utilities, the gas lines and all that are done. The last thing we want to do is dig up these roads, right? We do have a no-cut policy in the city. So if you did dig up a new road because you had to bring in a power line or something, that you have to grind an inlay each way. We call it a no-cut policy. You can cut, but you got to do a lot of things to get the pavement to look right again. So we have that policy in place for 5 years for all roadways. Here's a ribbon cutting that the folks did in 2016 for Lake Boulevard. So the discussion tonight is, are you guys interested in developing additional funding sources to increase the street fund operations and maintenance activities? So that's for people, materials, contractual services, and equipment. Also develop additional funding sources so we can do more projects get more projects out there. And then if so, we can complete some more work and talk to you some more about some potential sources of revenue. And then also before 2016, when the Transportation Benefit District ends, you know, we're going to need to look at replacing that funding for sure. But in the interim, though, we can look at other sources if council so desires. And then you can see Olympic Highway North after, Olympic Highway North before. You know, we need to try to keep our collector roadways out of this shape. And Olympic Highway North, as you get a little farther up, still in pretty poor shape. It's one of our #1 projects a few years out. So that's it. This is Shelton and Railroad Avenue in 1912. I found this photo and you can see, I don't think that's even gravel. I think that's dirt. So that's it. And I'm here to answer questions.
Councilmember Schmidt.
Hey, thanks. Good presentation. I appreciate the knowledge on some options here related to funding, as well as, you know, the big list of projects. If you could, can you knock back to that slide with all of the capital improvement projects kind of listed out? Getting there, one more back, I think. Yeah, that guy. So do we bring in roughly 300 to 400,000 a year in the TBD right now? Is that about what we're bringing in? I can't recall what the...
That's correct.
So I firmly agree that strategic pavement maintenance, prolonging the life of the pavement, is the cheaper answer in the long run, and quite frankly is the right answer, because people paid a lot of money to have that road paved in the beginning, and to fail to maintain it is not a good idea, right? I would like to consider, at least open it up for discussion, protecting a percentage of those TBD dollars for the next 5 years for only strategic pavement maintenance projects. And I would like to see consideration up to potentially up to $1 million of what we would bring in revenue over the next 5 years dedicated to that. I believe it's a 5-to-1 sort of payoff in the long run. If you can kind of get the list of those roads, and deferring Jay to you and your expertise, and at what point do we invest in that strategic or into that preventive maintenance, excuse me. I would be interested in learning more about that, and potentially looking at that from a policy perspective, just again, to protect those funds so we're making the best investment with them over the next 5 years until it runs out. Because I believe it's 2026, as you said, correct?
Yeah, so let me correct there. TBD, if you look to the left there, 675. And we're getting about 580 out on the roads right now. We need to really get it up to over $1 million. But what I could do is, we have a model of our street system. It's a Street Savers, what is called, the program that we use. I can run all sorts of scenarios in there. And so one of the scenarios is, you know, get on those fair streets, fair to good, right? And do some maintenance on those, get the PCI way back up there, and then start kitting with money, you know, the arterial and collectors that are failing, get those out of the way. And then last, we get on the local streets that are failing. The local streets won't fail as quickly, right? Than an arterial collector would, because there's a lot more trips, obviously. So anyway, so if I heard you correctly, you would like to see somewhere around $1 million. And what would that do on the system in terms of a 10-year payment condition index?
$1 million over 5 years is what I understand.
Oh, over 5 years?
Yeah, focusing about $200K a year just on preventive maintenance. Essentially, I guess something that I've heard that is a good idea at times is, before we invest any capital or make any capital improvement, it should have at least one preventive maintenance touch in its life cycle.
That's correct.
So starting to, I mean, obviously we've got roads that are failing. So that is a priority, especially if it's a classified road, not a local neighborhood type of a road. So it would be difficult to just devote all of the funds, in my opinion, to all of the TBD revenues to just preventive maintenance for the next 5 years. So again, my thought would be kind of 2/3 of that towards just preventive maintenance and the remaining towards those capital improvements or supporting capital improvement projects. Just a thought.
Okay.
Deidre?
Thank you. So I actually just had a couple of questions, Jay, if you could help me through. Can you clarify when you're talking about the strategy for prioritizing this maintenance work? Is that the current strategy now, or does that also reflect kind of most recent years?
Correct. So when I got here, we were out on local streets doing local blocks, and we were successful in obtaining grants. So you can see there's a lot of projects on here that we pretty much are using up the funds for gaining, grant money from other sources, right? So in 2022, it's not the greatest example, although Western Gateway is a huge priority. So the recommended down on that one slide, my recommendation would be we spend more time here up in the preventive maintenance mode, also have reconstruction projects in the mix, but work up here the best we can to keep roads from slipping and get to these with some additional funding, but keep the ones that are fair to get them up to excellent. Work more up here to keep them from slipping into here, right? It's a little bit of a chess game, but if you go and start, reconstructing gravel roadways and let those fair to good roadways, have issues, by letting water in and letting them crack more, we're gonna have a problem, right? A really big problem. So my recommendation is this, is to follow, and this comes out, almost any pavement model will tell you this, right? This is what they teach you in pavement school, right? Is maintain what you got and try to reconstruct when you can, right?
Right.
And so, and we've done well with grants, so I would think the mix would be really work on the preventive maintenance using our existing funds. It's hard to get grants for maintenance work. It's easier to get grants for rehab work, like Western Gateway, right? Or Olympic Highway North. So really work up here with our existing funds and try and get grant money for some of the restoration or rehabilitation projects.
Well, and forgive me, because I think everyone on this call knows, my husband's a civil engineer. My dad has worked in county roads since 1988 until he recently retired. And so I probably know just enough to be dangerous about a lot of this. I mean, we'd go out and take field trips to look at roadways and culverts and fun things like that.
That sounds good. Can I come along?
I absolutely think either of them would be pleased to have you join us.
Do you take a sack lunch for that, or?
Right. But the reason I asked about strategy is kind of you hit at the end of that, Jay, is we've talked on council before about some of the really poorly rated roads and the fact that staff has made the strategic decision to allow those to continue to deteriorate in hopes of gaining funding. And there's a few that come to mind specifically. But is there any areas that we should not be necessarily following that strategy? For example, are there specific roads that have capacity for economic development if those roadways were improved? That's one thing that comes to mind. Another is those roads that service county services or generate a lot of trips. And I know those are a different beast because of the concrete panels. And that's one thing we didn't really touch on in this discussion is how we manage those concrete panel roads and what the costs are on that. So if you could maybe speak to those a little bit, and I have a couple others, but I'll wait till the rest of the council's had a chance to chat a bit.
Yeah, so a couple things there. I mean, obviously to a fire station or a bus mall, you need to make sure that those roads are in pretty good shape, right? In terms of economic development strategies, of course, especially if you have a large undeveloped area. And we have in our transportation comprehensive plan, we have a list with dashed lines on it that show future roadways on there, right? Those need to get built, right, down the road. Some of those are in the UGA, or actually a lot of them are in the UGA. We need to watch what's going on there because it's hard to build a transportation arterial in the UGA when the development's in the UGA, because our traffic impact fees don't apply in the UGA. So we have a bunch of policy things that Jeff and I need to get through with development in the urban growth area per se. I mean, some of the larger economic drivers are in the UGA, obviously. There's some still left here in the current city limits, though, too. Residential is most of it, right? So the concrete panel roads you'd mentioned, they are roads that I think define the downtown. This is just a staff member speaking here, but I think we should try to preserve those and replace those along the way in their current manner and improve them, right? It's not often that you see an old downtown with concrete roadways, and I think it adds character. It shows we're different. And I'd highly recommend trying to keep up with those roads. So my staff, I said, we're replacing panels of the roadway, not overlaying it, grinding, overlaying, or doing whatever. This is a council policy. Right now, I'm just doing maintenance work. When we go do reconstruction, though, I mean, if everybody wants to see those, go black with asphalt, we can do it. The problem is you get panel reflective cracking. I don't know if you've seen that on roads where, every 20 feet, you see the joint, you see the joint, you see the joint when you pave over it, right? So that's sort of another policy thing for council is, do you want to maintain what's, the concrete roads that are left, which are quite a few in downtown, and Cascade Natural Gas is going to be doing some full panel replacement with their project. That they cut into some concrete panels, and they're going to be doing quite a bit of replacement there. But and one last thing on the panels. So if they settle a little bit, you can they have hydraulic jacking where you get in there and jack up the raised or the sunken panel. If it's raised a little bit, we already have a grinder. We can grind that off. So I'd like to concentrate on the downtown roads in the next few years. And that could be some of this preventive maintenance up here, that we can show certain blocks that are getting preventive maintenance and maybe a little bit of rehab on some of those blocks too, right? And try to improve the downtown roadways. So,
and what jumps to mind for me there, Jay, what jumps to mind for me there is the work that the Public Works team did in front of or near ProBuild and was very successful in raising the existing concrete panels. And what I wonder, have an idea of, what the cost of that is as compared to a traditional maintenance technique, and is that something that we should be planning at X% per year to be looking at some of those panels? Fourth, particularly because it services most of the county buildings and has no stop signs for most of it, sees quite a lot of traffic through town, and there's some really depressed areas of that. So just trying to think about how that plays in addition to all of the maintenance techniques that you mentioned earlier.
Sure, good suggestion. Thank you.
We had Deputy Mayor Peterson last year, or 2 years ago now, I guess, we had the opportunity to use the foam to raise some of those concrete panels, similar to what some of the foundation companies do for private residences. It seemed to work really well. And if I recall correctly, it was very cost effective, but we can get exact numbers for you as we continue this conversation.
Thank you. Like I said, I have a couple other questions, but I'll wait until everyone else has a chance.
Okay, Mr. Bode?
Cool. I am definitely about the maintenance. I think it's very important, but you said something in there that I'd like to know a little bit more about. You said you get a lot of pushback when we do maintenance. What are we doing to inform, educate people on those roads and in those areas and the community about the importance of the maintenance so we don't get pushback?
So the pushback that we get is that we're doing preventive maintenance on a roadway that looks pretty good, right? It has some cracking and whatever, and we're crack sealing and maybe doing a slurry seal job. But then that person that's 5 blocks down, is living on a gravel road, or they're living on a street that is, the asphalt is just crumbling, right? And so the word needs to get out. You're right. I mean, we need to do some public campaigning to say we're spending your money, in the best manner possible, and we'll get to your road. Everyone just has to sort of wait. And it's a difficult discussion, but preventive maintenance saves us a lot of money in the future. And we just need to get to the other streets when we can. So at my former job, we had a 5-year map of where we're doing preventive maintenance and where we're doing reconstruction projects. And there were some people that their roads weren't on the 5-year map. And a lot of those were roads that were PCI of 30 or 40 or 50 maybe. And they're not going to get much worse, but they're not going to get much better either, right? And it sort of goes with the business here.
So I'm hearing that we're not doing anything to inform and educate them then.
Currently, no, because the pavement policy has been all over the map. When I started here, we were doing residential streets only. And so we finished that up. And this last year, we got part done because there was a lot of dips in the road and issues with that. And we've really been focusing on Western Gateway because of the grant funding. But what I want to do is form a direction, with council, and then get the word out to people why we're doing what we're doing.
Okay. So perfect. So anyone who asks, I can tell them we have no plan to.
Part of
What was that, Counselor?
Councilmember Bode, part of what tonight's discussion is about is so that we can gain clarity about how we approach road projects now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And once we have clear direction from council, then we will absolutely communicate that to our citizens. But that's what we're doing tonight as well, is making sure that people understand in the long term, preservation of these assets higher on the PCI scale is much more cost effective for us and ultimately for the people that pay for those things, which are people who live here and work here.
Perfect. I fully understand and recognize that. And like I was stated from the beginning, I agree with it. I like the path that Joe was talking about. It's just like we were saying, if we're getting pushback from something, having a plan of getting ahead of that pushback is important in my opinion. So cool. That my question was answered. We have no plan. I appreciate it.
Mr. Schmidt.
Yeah, just a quick one. Jay, do we do crack sealing in-house, or do we go out and contract that?
In-house, Todd Rhodes and a couple other people are all over it every year. And anyways, they buy a bunch of the sealant, and we have a machine, and we get out there and go get it done. I don't know how many lane miles they did this year, but if we were in Newburgh, where I came from, that's all we did every year. That's the only money we had. And then we do a little bit of spot paving here and there because we only had like 130,000. So crack sealing was about 60,000 every year. So we need to get on every road every 5 years and keep those cracks sealed up at a minimum to keep the water out of the pavement structure. So that is the least cost thing we need to keep doing, around the whole city. There are some roads though, once they get real alligatored out, you got to walk away and say, there's no way I can seal all those cracks, right? So at a certain point, you need to say it's time for the road to be restored.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Deidre, back to you.
Okay, my next question, I guess, kind of dovetailing off of that is, what interlocal agreements do we have, or are there opportunities to kind of decrease some of those mobilization costs? And I know chip seal has been something we've been going out to contract for every year. Is there an opportunity to approach Mason County and see, about bringing that cost down? Also, I don't think that as of this point, council has given staff any direction to leverage what dollars we have to partner with the county on projects. For example, when they paved Brockdale, if we had paved our portion of Brockdale, I imagine the mobilization costs would have been significantly less than us having to go out and do that ourselves. So, what steps can we take, or how can we support the public works team to leverage what dollars we do have to keep those costs as low as possible per job?
Yeah, so before I got here, folks were working with the county on chip seal projects. And it was about 3 years ago, 4 maybe, that their chip seal cost was higher than the bids that we would have received. And so staff at that time sort of departed away from the county. I've been talking to the public works department over there about reinitializing discussions. Like 13th, I wanted to see if they could go do 13th as they went and did other projects. Not super interested. They have their own projects and they're looking after their own things, right? And so I meet with them in the next few weeks. I'm going to talk to them about it again to try to team up. And well, once I have a really good plan of where I'm going, 5 years and what roadways, it'll be a lot easier to sit down with the county and say, we're going to be here, here, and here, 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 and here on all these roadways. And that, what are you doing over there? And those sorts of things. So when we're locally in the same area, we can build some synergy there. But right now I don't have a 5-year paving map. And that's one of the goals is I need to find out from you folks, preventive maintenance, or do you want to go do local paving, block by block by block? Because I can't do both, right? And so once I know how we're strategizing this, then I can go into the pavement model. I know how much money we have right now, and at least get the project set for the next year or two, and then work on some additional funding sources, work with the county and see if we can team up on a project or two. So yes, we don't have an ILA that we're using right now with them on paving.
Is there a standard within the industry as far as how many FTE you should have per road miles or per budget? So if we're saying that we don't have enough folks to do the work we're doing, is there sort of an industry standard we should be trying to get to?
Well, the whole thing is it would be based on your pavement condition index. Because if you were a brand new city, my road guys would love us, right? They go out, the stop sign falls over, whatever, crack seal a little bit of striping, have a good day, right? So there really isn't a metric there. I know just from watching them, I rotate from department to department, that the street people are running really hard right now and they just can't keep up. And anyways, especially to have an assistant supervisor out there would be very, very helpful, to dump a load of things onto it. You got to remember they're maintaining, flashing beacons for the schools, and then we have to replace all the signs. Wood posts are out. We're going to all metal posts. We have handicap ramps all over the place that could use some work, or they don't even exist. So the work will never end for the street people. We could throw another 5 people out there and probably not have a problem at all finding projects. Guardrails are rusty, going bad, it just goes on and on and on. So got a lot of work for these guys, a lot of work.
Absolutely. And our teams do work really hard. I'm just trying to see, I know for example, in the chamber industry, X number of members or X $100,000 of your budget, you should have so many staff people. I wondered if there was something similar to that within the public works.
There isn't, because of pavement condition index. That's sort of the odd one out. That if you have a lot of like gravel roads, it'd be different than somebody with chip seal roads, which would be different than people with paved roads. So it's so hard to put that metric on it. What does your system look like? That it'd be very difficult to say how many FTE that you need for each particular system. You just got to look at the day-to-day operations and what are these people actually getting done, and what equipment are we replacing. There's been budget requests of the city manager multiple years for just additional materials for the assistant fuel supervisor and other things that we can't fund right now. And we're trying to get as much money out on the streets if we can and not hire as many people, right?
And my last question for the time being is, how often are we taking traffic counts of our different roadways so that we have an idea of which truly are our collectors, local, et cetera?
Yeah, so the state requires us to update that every 2 years. We have to go onto the state website and type all those in. So that's Todd Rhodes says all that, or a field supervisor. And anyways, that new speed sign that we have is very beneficial to that also, that he doesn't have to put out the old pneumatic tube counters anymore. And so, but every 2 years we're updating. That's just collectors and arterials. We are getting data on the local streets as they come in for speeding and stuff. So we're collecting data. When we get complaints of speeding, we put the signs out for a couple of weeks, and we have traffic data coming in on local streets now too.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Eric?
Hi, I just want to say I believe that maintenance is very important, but I think it's also important to do residential blocks every year. 60% of the people voted for the Transportation Benefit District voted for roads being fixed. Whether we do more maintenance and a few less blocks, I mean that's one thing. But I think it's very important that we accomplish both in our priorities.
One thing I can say, I've heard the phrase 20 residential blocks, and for the TBD dollars we're talking about, we're lucky to get done 4 blocks, 6 blocks sort of thing, especially if there's a bunch of ADA ramps, if you have a bunch of grinding you got to do. Anyways, so I don't know where the 20 blocks came from, but that's a misnomer. You're not getting 20 blocks of paving done, not in today's economies.
Well, it was a few years ago when we did the 20 blocks, and
Okay.
and we were doing 20 blocks, and then we reduced it down a couple of years ago, if memory serves me right, to less blocks, just more of a project rather than blocks. But like I said, even if it's less than the goal was, I think we should do both as a priority.
Wait, question on that though. We were completely rehabilitating 20 city blocks a year.
For like $200,000.
No way.
Yeah.
No way.
Go
We might have
backwards.
been doing pavement maintenance like an overlay or something like that, but not full on reconstruction with sidewalks and drainage and everything.
No, I believe we were just repairing roads or chip sealing, but we were working on roads.
So that I just want to make sure I'm clear. I hear what you're saying, but it's like chip sealing is considered preventive maintenance. Correct, Jay?
That's correct, yes.
Right. So we could do potentially 20 city blocks of chip seal a year.
Mhm.
And is that something you'd be kind of comfortable with? That like going that route, something like that?
If the base is adequate for that,
Yeah, staff would need to obviously make that call, but
yeah.
because I would be supportive of looking at things like that, but complete rehabilitation of residential neighborhoods and things like that, it's just a tough pill to swallow at $1 million a mile. I could get much further along with strategic maintenance, and it would put a new surface essentially on top of the road. So just a thought, but I get where you're going at that, Eric.
Yeah, if it works, that's fine. But I just want to make sure that we're also getting into the neighborhoods where there are some issues and people want their roads in a little better shape. Also, I think that we should try to knock out these gravel roads, even if it's one every couple of years or whatever. And people are on gravel roads are paying the same taxes as people on railroad.
Yeah, can I make a comment here on that?
Sure.
So when people buy a house on a gravel road, the developer didn't put in all the infrastructure. They didn't put in sidewalks, they didn't put in curbs, they didn't pave the road. They put in, substandard drainage. I mean, it goes on and on and on.
Well, our city's 100 years old also,
Well, I get it, but
I mean, some of these houses have been there since 1920, so let's.
correct, but people pay less for a house on a gravel road. Their assessed valuation's less, right? There is the theory that when you pave that road, it increases that person's property value. And it's pretty significant data on that. So that's when I was with my former employer that we spoke of people are gaining a benefit in their property values. The developer typically would do it now anyways. They're responsible for a portion of that improvement dollars. Just how much was the question, right?
Excuse me, Megan, do you have something?
Yeah, I like to bring more of the human aspect sometimes to this conversation. I want to tell a story about Eleanor Avenue, East Eleanor Avenue. In 2006, East or Eleanor Avenue was part of a project, the chip sealing project that was happening all over Hilltop, Hillcrest back then. And I know we have improved our processes quite a bit. Jay, having you on staff has been wonderful, getting these plans put together, making sure that we understand what's under the ground, what needs to be repaired there, and then making sure that we're not doing construction above the ground and chip sealing something prior to making sure that the in-ground infrastructure is taken care of. So in 2006, Eleanor Avenue was a hot mess of a road. And I still bought a house there. And it actually runs right into a gravel road, 2 houses down, from a gravel road. Didn't affect our housing costs at all or anything like that, market rate or anything like that. But it wasn't consideration, but it was still a place that we wanted to live. The road condition was a consideration. We were so excited that once we moved in, within 6 months, the city came in and fixed that road. And it was smooth and it was beautiful. And it was a wonderful thoroughfare to get through the neighborhood. And then 3 months later, city came in and ripped it all apart to do the infrastructure stuff inside, underneath the road. And you know what? That road has been sitting a mess again. Since 2006. So my thought and my thinking and my desire for our city is that we make sure, and going to James's point too, is that we make sure that we're educating, informing, because my memory of chip seal in my neighborhood is that the city's going to come back in a couple months and rip it back apart. So we need to make sure that our community understands that we are committed to understanding with our new GIS system what our full infrastructure is, that we have this wonderful map and priority plan put together, and that we have commitment from us as city council and our staff that we will not be ripping up roads that we just fixed. Unless you get where I'm going, y'all, right? So it's really, really important for us to remember who we were, who we are today, and who
There
we
you
are
go.
in the future. And pay homage along the way so that we can get the change management and innovation in this space.
Yeah, that was probably back, how long, you say 2006?
Yeah.
Somewhere in there? Yeah.
Project, we did a huge.
It sounds to me like they did not do a complete job. And
But that's the historical information that our have in the neighborhoods, right?
Right.
Very, very important as we move this stuff, to make sure that we have a communication plan, that our neighborhoods that are being supported, our roads that are being supported, the businesses know what's going on. It's all connected, and ultimately, and I know you all know this as staff, when those things happen, folks come to us first and say, why did you do this?
Right.
Just again, I think that we are on a great process for planning. We've got a great plan. We have great new tools. We have effective and efficient staff who are subject matter experts in their space. And again, it's all combined though. It's all connected, and we can't forget that we don't move residents around a lot here in Shelton. We're all been around for a minute, and we all remember. We got long memories. So, you saying?
Yeah, Jay, anybody else have their hand up? I didn't see anybody else. Anyway, it's a predicament, and I agree with you and several of the other people tonight that we need to take care of what we have. And at the same time, we need to fix other stuff. And how we're gonna do that, I don't know yet. We need to build that pot of money up to about $1 million, it sounds like. And how we're gonna get there, I can't wait to hear from you how we're gonna do that.
Give me a couple days and I'll get it done. No, I'll talk to you first part of the year.
Yeah. Anything else for Jay?
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. All right. Our next and last study item is an update on IT. Administrative Services Director, Michelle Sutherland. The details for us.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. So we're here to give a technology update this evening on several of the different projects that we're working on. Tim is going to start, our IT manager, Tim Odorf, updating us on the infrastructure work that he's been doing. And then we'll discuss a few other software updates and we'll finish with GIS and Jay. So Tim, if you wanted to go ahead.
Sure. Thanks. Good evening, Mayor and Deputy Mayor and council members. I'm just going to give you today kind of a verbal tour of what it's been like in the last year in the IT department, kind of walking through all the different changes that we've had. It's been exciting. I love IT projects. I'm kind of a geeky guy anyway, and this has been right in my wheelhouse. So back in November of last year, the city contracted with Wright Systems. They have a branch office in Lacey, Washington, and we had used them a couple of previous times prior to November in some projects. We had a couple of server issues and Exchange emails, server issues that we had. Wright Systems come in and their engineers to help fix this up. So we've went through the process of vetting them and signed the contract in December and started the project of kind of rebuilding our IT department, our IT infrastructure. So we went from essentially a team of 2 FTEs that were running the whole show. We were the help desk, the server administration team, and did everything in between, including video systems for the court, cell phones, maintenance for servers, backups, everything. And when we brought Wright Systems on board, what we gained from that was that we gained their experience, their background in IT infrastructure, and they have 40 IT engineers and support technicians that support city users now. And we have a vast array of subject experts in IT for analysis and industry specific counsel on strategy, best practices, technology, and management. So the very first part of the project was to replace and install new network and server infrastructure. That was completed in December. And from that, it allows Wright Systems engineers and technicians to not only monitor, but to maintain all of our server infrastructure. We brought in new Dell laptops. If you remember what happened, say March of last year, we were scrambling to try to send as many laptops and other PCs out the door to be able to support city workers working from home, and it was quite a scramble. So we're in a much better place now. We've purchased Dell laptops and assigned them to users that do have, the ability to work from home, or, when they're on the road, or, whatever. They're able to log into the city networks. I know Michelle tonight, she was showing me a little screenshot of her working on, Tyler Cloud product, at home in her home office. I do it too. When I have systems I want to check on, or if I want to work from home, I can plug my laptop into my home office, connect to the city network, and work on documents as if I'm sitting at my desk in the Civic Center. So we essentially plan to support users with two different products. So they're either assigned a laptop or a thin client. And the thin client is a product that connects to a Citrix server, and the user has the same experience as running a Windows 10 PC. So they can access all the same products, all the same Microsoft Office products, and do their job on a device that is essentially running on a server. So those are in place, and I think I'm like 4 users away from having all of those Dell products installed, so that users can use them at their desk. And when they go home and know that they're going to be working on something that evening, they can unplug it, take it home, boot it up at home, and log into the city network and have the same experience that they have at their desk. And one of the other projects that we had crop up was our patrol cars for the SPD. They were running their laptops in their cars on kind of a consumer grade product called the MiFi modem. It's a Verizon product, USB modem that just plugs into the side of the laptop. And I mean, the whole time that I've worked for the city, they've complained about connectivity issues. There are dead zones. I mean, if you use a cell phone, you pretty much know, there are certain areas where you're going to find low signal or dead zones. So all of our patrol cars were retrofitted with cradle point routers. And what these are, if you consider kind of like going from a cell-based modem to a full-blown router in the car, that's what we got. And the initial outlay was a little bit more expensive than what you would for a MiFi modem, but the internet connectivity costs per month are exactly the same. This gives us the ability to kind of monitor and maintain those routers via web interface. And they have GPS locating services on them too, so we can see location of patrol cars from the interface too. Devices and connections are great, but in order to get work done, you need software. And we have part of the Right Systems project was to integrate city users into Microsoft 365, which used to be called Office 365, including the full-blown, Office suite, cloud-based services, and another product called Microsoft Intune, which allows us to integrate our laptops, devices, tablets, cell phones into that management portal, so that we can assist users remotely, push apps to their phones. And that Intune was kind of a slow developing part of the project. Right Systems lost an engineer to Microsoft, and they were in search of somebody to replace him, and they have that person hired now. So in the near future, I'm going to be able to get some time with them in order to complete that part of the installation and get Intune up and running. And then the last two projects that I'm going to talk about this evening are a product called Okta, which is a multi-factor authentication product. And the other product is called Cohensity. It's a backup as a service. We had an issue this summer with a couple of our accounts that were essentially breached by nefarious folks. And we had to go through the process of not only signing those folks out of said accounts and restoring the credentials for the users, but also it kind of creates a headache for our help desk to be able to get us taken off of blacklists, because when the city accounts were sending out spam emails, it essentially blacklists the city's domain. And so we had to go back in and spend the time in order to get us off of those blacklists and back onto the good guys side of the email world. And so Okta will be a very helpful tool in kind of ridding those folks of guessing passwords or doing that, because it all goes back, just like when you log into your bank account online and it pushes a code to your cell phone. This product will do the same thing for us, so that we'll have much more secure systems. And lastly, that backup as a service product. We were maintaining a backup system that had a lot of manual intervention by IT staff. We were pushing them out to hard drives, and the hard drives were driven up the hill to a safety deposit box in the bank. And, you know, we do need to have separation for our data and recoverability and safety in those. And this product will allow us to get that for our server infrastructure. So talked about a lot of stuff. Didn't have any cool PowerPoint to be able to give you illustrations to look at, just me standing here or sitting here as a talking head. But it's been a long year of projects. We're not quite done yet, but the light at the end of the tunnel is kind of, I can see it now. And I think the city is in a much better place, going from kind of a IT army of 2 down to now it's an IT army of 1 in the city, to a co-managed service where I have, you know, Right Systems has my back, help desk technicians, system engineers. They're just an email, a phone call away, and we can get things solved. And the experience has been great for city, and I feel like this was the best direction that this city could have taken. And obviously, this has been my second career in IT at the city, and I'm looking to retire here, and you know, in not too long future, but I would love to hand off an entity, and I'm sure somebody coming in on IT where they're coming into a co-managed resource where all the hard questions have been answered and all the solutions have been put in place, where the city is functioning and, you know, doing well. That's a great shop. You'll have folks love to come into that environment. So I just wanted to bounce back to you and see if anybody has any questions. No help desk questions. I'm going to tell you to contact Right Systems, but I'll gladly answer any questions you might have.
I also wanted to say real quickly, IT security is huge for me. It's always at the front of my mind. Tim knows that, because, you know, every 2, 3, 4 months, something will pop into the headlines about that, specifically with municipal government. And I'm back at his door going, we're okay, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you noticed or saw, but about a month ago, there was a city in the Midwest that paid $170,000 to get out of a ransomware situation. That's happened in multiple places around the country, and one in Washington State not too long ago, if I remember right. So that's one of the reasons for that backup authentication, but it's also so we aren't compromised by spam bots. So anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes, and we do appreciate your support as a council in allowing us to do all of these updates.
Yep.
Definitely more secure and such an improvement over the aging infrastructure that we had that would have needed to be replaced. So much appreciated.
So I see Joe and Eric's hands up. I don't know who.
I see Eric's hand and Joe, yeah.
Oh, I just wanted to thank you, Tim, for all your hard work. I was worried about you the last year. I've even asked you a couple times how things were, and you said, it's okay, I'm good. And I've asked Jeff the same thing. And I just want to give you an A+ for all your work and bringing all this to the council so we can support you in all these upgrades, and keep up the good work. Now you got an A. If you get rid of my spam emails, you get an A+.
Yeah, that's always going to keep coming, Eric. Just don't push any buttons.
I get more spam emails than I think I do regular emails on my city phone.
Is that right? Okay, well, we can definitely open a ticket and see if we can tweak the spam filters a little bit.
Okay, but great job. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Joe?
Hey, Joe.
Yep. It sounds like Eric just got himself signed up for a whole bunch of spam emails coming soon. Real quick, I know in no problem prioritizing the investments. We realize, especially during the pandemic, that it's just the right answer. It's just what the modern working environment is all about. That said, what's left? I'm interested to know what systems, software, hardware, what things haven't we been able to potentially fund? And what are those needs that are out there that we might need to be looking at, longer term plans for? Just, we weren't able to get those programmed in either recovery funds or other revenues, that sort of thing. So I'm always interested in what those long-term needs might be. If you don't have that tonight, no problem, but like I said, interested in that data and where that aligns with the council goals and other efficient government, activities. So, but otherwise, thanks,
sure.
guys.
And that's part of the benefit of working with a company like Bright Systems is every 3-4 months, we have a meeting, we kind of walk through where we're at. And then when they see a hole possibly in either security or some need that we're having, or if they're monitoring our help desk tickets and seeing something going, oh, you know what, you might consider doing this. And then I would gladly bring that forward and let you know. And that's the benefit of working with a team of IT professionals, is they can make suggestions that if somebody that has their head down doing the work it's not always self-evident to them. So appreciate that, Joe.
All right. Anything else for Tim? If not.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Councilor, have any new you want to talk about?
Mr. Mayor, I do think.
Does Michelle have something?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, just briefly, I wanted to go over the Tyler Encode software. So when I came in early 2019, we were just utilizing that one portion of the Tyler software suite, which was the finance and human resources portion. So one of the updates that we did with Tyler Encode, which is finance and personnel, as a part of the infrastructure update, was move that system to the Tyler cloud. And similar to what Tim had talked about, it's reliable, it's secure, it's stable, and we don't have those systems on aging infrastructure. So that's one initiative that we've done, is to try to move things, more software systems to be working on the cloud. So it's reliable, it's secure, it's scalable. So that cloud update was completed in May of 2021. So that was quite an accomplishment for the finance staff. We have the EnerGov is in implementation right now. So that's a critical piece moving forward for community development and planning, permitting. It automates all of those operations. It has an enforcement case management, inspections, and it allows things to be done in a more timely manner and online instead of the paper process. So it'll be very convenient. And Mark is actually heading up that implementation right now. And he gave me an update. The GIS integration with the EnerGov implementation is now complete. They've developed user lists for plan reviews, inspections, and code enforcement. Working collaboratively as a team that Mark's pulled together to work specifically just on this implementation. All of those people, the week of August 23rd, had a week of training, and that included planning, building, fire, engineering, code enforcement, the clerk's office, as well as finance. He's currently developing permit case types, workflow processes, and fee schedules with Tyler, and setting up financial cashiering and processing. He's working with that on the finance department. So thank you, Mark, for taking lead on that project. It is a huge one. The timeline for completion, looking roughly by June of 2022. So it takes a long time to do the discovery, develop your processes, and see how things are going to work for your agency. So that is online right now. We have enterprise asset management, which will be very, very beneficial to the city. It's got asset maintenance, asset performance, and it's really an amazing program to keep track of our assets in a much better manner than that we've been doing currently. So that project will kick off January of 2022 with a completion estimated by December. So I know I'll be giving you further updates. One thing that we did implement is the My Civic and My 311. So I have a few basic statistics for Joe. We had 183 people download the Shelton app that allows you to report an issue and see all of your city services. 183 downloads. We've had 30 issues filed, followed up on and completed by our staff. The top items that people are looking at are news, events, report an issue, and pay my bill. So we're looking forward to getting more information out to the community again and to keep pushing that app. When we have people call the Civic Center to report a pothole, asking, hey, did you know that we have an app that'll allow you to just report that issue? So trying to work with the public and again, getting more materials out than we did with our initial push of the app. So we've got that going on with Tyler. One other very exciting thing, along with rebranding, is a new city website. So we've had a team of us working with our current provider, Revise, developing a new face for the city and a new innovative web design that looks a little bit more updated, and one that will be much more easily readable on other devices such as iPads and phones. I know our current website right now, some of the pages, and they're just really difficult to look at on your phone. So it'll have enhanced functionality and navigation capability, streamlined to really enhance the city. One of the highlights are different things like living in Shelton, working in Shelton, playing in Shelton, and something that's really catchy that catches your eye. Oh, what a great place this is. Improved content management. We are actually going to be starting from scratch. So the old website has so many pages and so many dead links. We didn't want to transfer over any of that old information. So we'll be starting fresh. We've got blank pages. Things will be much more cohesive, easier to read, and we'll have a specific format. So we're kind of looking at the same things per department. And we're hoping to have that done by January 31st of this year. That is our goal. So let's see, OpenGov. That's been functioning fully for the finance department, budgeting, collaborative budgeting with all the departments, which has been a really great thing. Operating budgets, budgetary reporting, transparency and community engagement are a big thing for OpenGov. So Jeff, did you have anything to add on that? But it's just been so much more improved. It's cut down on the time that the finance department has had to do the budget.
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier to collaborate across departments. We don't need to sit across the table from each other as much as we may want to sometimes, but we don't have to. We can do all that from our screens. The other thing I wanted to mention on the website and the rebranding portion, I got a sneak preview today along with Mary Ricker, our communication specialist, of potential new logo designs. And we'll be sharing those with you on the 26th to pare down so that we can ask the community to take a look and vote on their favorite. I was really impressed. So I'm looking forward to council taking a look at those and giving us your input in a couple weeks.
Wonderful. So again, like I will tell you a story as well. So when I was looking for a job in this area, I went to all of the common websites, governmentjobs.com, Indeed, different things like that. How I found out about the job specifically for the city of Shelton, of course, my cousin lives in Camilchi and his wife sent me a Facebook post. Oh, there's a job opening out here. So I was like, well, great, but I didn't see it posted anywhere else. So I've been here since March of 2019, so that definitely worked then. But one thing that we do now and that we've implemented is NeoGov. So what that allows us to do is attract people from basically all over the United States, qualified applicants, locally, regionally, and again, throughout the United States, and bring a little bit of diversity into the city. And I think it's very beneficial to have a lot of differing points of view. So that's been something that has been great. We have, as a result of that, processed 55 new hires since I got here and we implemented this system. Another part of NeoGov is it allows us to generate different reports for EEO, diversity and inclusion initiatives, which will be for my department, a big push for 2022, and analyze different hiring metrics. By December of this year, we will have fully functional onboarding modules. So again, trying to work smarter. What that will allow new hires to do is complete all of their hiring paperwork for the most part online, watch all of the required videos, complete all of their training in one area so that it can be monitored and not be using a paper system. So I think that's going to be great for getting all the information out there. And it will also allow us to utilize that for training videos that city employees need to be kept up on for information and certification in the city. And starting in January of 2022, we'll be utilizing their performance module. And what that does, it allows you to coach, mentor, a collaborative process between supervisors and staff on their goals throughout the year, what things are looking like. And it's a program I worked with before. And that's one thing that the city hasn't had up until 2020 in development, was an updated performance management system, which we did on paper at that time, looking ahead to possibly get that online. And in this next year, we'll finally be able to do that. So definitely a lot of technology updates and improvements since 2019. Well, that's all that I have for today. I know Jay wanted to go over some GIS information systems with you.
Yeah, Council, Jay Harris again. So about a year ago, Manager Knight and I got a hold of the Association of Washington Cities, and they have a bunch of services they offer. One is geographical information systems, or GIS. And what they have is a rate that you pay by a certain number of hours a year. And they have a company called Flow Analytics that offers the service for a bunch of different Washington cities. So we signed up for the consortium and with Flow Analytics, and started out building our GIS mapping. So we brought the county, allowed us into their services. So we got the county tax law database, street names, and ownership ID on each parcel. And we had utility maps. I got one here on the wall that we use, these analog utility maps. We currently are still doing that. We imported those from AutoCAD, got those into GIS, did a bunch of cleanup. We found recently that most of the utility maps that we imported, the lines are generally in the right spot, but they can be off by 5 or 10 feet. Just not a high level of accuracy in AutoCAD when it was drafted. So we're working with the GIS consultant to actually update the utility infrastructure entities. So we have much more precise, probably within 3 or 4 inches is probably where we're going to get to. That will find a water valve quite easily that gets paved over, those sorts of things, water meter boxes. And so one of the problems we run in though in this area is you have to use global positioning systems or GPS to locate the assets. We didn't have a correction station here in our local area. And what it does is you can read, 10 or 15 satellites on the GPS receiver. The correction station actually really zeroes them in and gets you from like 4 feet, 3 feet of accuracy to inch type of accuracy. So we got a hold of the Washington State GIS division. Within 2 weeks, we had a correction station installed at one of our well sites. Amazing service from them. So we're broadcasting public information right now that anybody with a GPS surveying unit can go out and gather really highly accurate data in our community. So it'll benefit WashDOT, the county also, that sort of thing. We're also training our folks to use the GPS equipment and to go out and assist. So I have Flow Analytics going out and gathering a whole bunch of utility data. I also have our guys going out and doing the same and learning how to do it. Because once we get all the infrastructure in, we're going to continue with the updates. Our field workers using the Esri GIS product is going to be able to update the entities in the field for us, which would be real nice. So let me show you just a current screenshot of the system. So this is where we're at right now. This is up at Turner, and here's Harvard Street. So for example, we're looking at the last session I talked to you about these lots that we're going to declare them as surplus. So this information was very reliable. So we have our water tanks right here. We have our water lines. We have sewer lines that go down Wingwood Place. There's storm lines across the street. I don't have that layer turned on right now that go into this area. And so then you could, and I turned the county contours on. They're 5 foot. We were able to locate 2-foot contours, which is really good for the development community to use. You can click on a particular tax lot and it will give you the ownership information. This all comes from the county, which I'm very thankful they're able to get us, all their assessors information. So that's currently the state of the system. This map is going internal here, probably in the next month or 2 for a bunch of demoing. And then down the road, we're probably going to release this to the public next spring sometime so they could use this. It will help us out significantly with our permitting that we do with folks. Also, if you just go to a couple of the layers that are turned off, that we have aerial photos of various years, which is very, very helpful to see what happened in the past all the way back to 1980. And we have a bunch of planning layers in here, the zoning districts and that sort of thing. All the utilities are in here, obviously. So really robust system. We're putting in like our handicap ramps in there or ADA ramps. And we'll be able to do a condition analysis on them. So what is GIS going to be used for? It's going to be used in EnerGov. It's already being integrated. It's going to be used in our enterprise asset management. So I'll be able to assign a work order to that manhole right there. And when I look at that manhole, it'll tell me how old it is. We'll have a picture of it. And I can schedule future work orders. I'll define a replacement life for it, that sort of thing. So for EAM, it will work out good. And the building permitting system will rely on this also. So that's sort of a snapshot of GIS. So it should be rolled out here to the public in probably late spring, staff here internally in the near future, so we can sort of work some bugs out of it. So I'm open for questions.
Looks like Megan has one.
Jay, you should be really proud. Great. I mean, all of the IT projects that are happening, Michelle, you and your team should be super proud. And Jay, specifically the GIS project, like you were saying, attached to the asset management, you know, and I was just meeting with a developer a couple weeks ago, and he was telling me, you know, how desirable it is to work with municipalities that have tool available. And I just want to thank you for all of your hard work on this, and thanks to Jeff and the whole crew for helping us, you know, be desirable to developers, be able to be in the 21st century, and again get into a place where we can have an effective strategic plan and make sure that we know exactly what's under the ground and where it's at, and that we are making sure that we're not ripping up roads again that don't need to be ripped up. So,
Yeah.
super proud. You should be very happy with your work.
Thank you.
I would just like to add real quick, this benefits us in two major ways. One, as Jay mentioned and Councilmember Feast just mentioned, the economic development side, it makes things so much incredibly easier, both for the private sector developer or public sector developer and city permitting staff to be able to go in, take a look at this. It makes you don't have to dig through the top layer information to get to what you really need to know, which is, it will be huge for us when it's completely implemented. On the other side, it is a huge benefit for proactive maintenance and as a budgeting tool, because we know when something is going to need to be replaced and it's not a shock to us. Hopefully reduce those shocks going forward, and we can plan our budget systems and our CFPs around those major replacement issues, so we don't have things like we had unfortunately with the stormwater pond up behind the library that was built by the Corps in the 70s and nobody maintained it and took care of it. Now we're going to know that's there. We're going to know when it needs to happen, and we know how much it's going to cost to pay for it. We can plan for that and provide council with accurate information to take care of our assets now and in the future. So,
Manager Knighton, also institutional knowledge. We are going to, people like our water system, Matt Deemer has so much, he knows every one of these valves, every one of these meters, hydrant locations, all that. Well, once we start assigning work orders, those are going to be available forever. And so new staff members can come on and be instant experts. So that institutional knowledge is going into these software systems, and we gain significant productivity on our employees, that everyone will be an expert out there.
That's really good because Deemer is an expert. He would be hard to replace without something like this.
Is Michelle still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Hi, Michelle. I just wanted to give a little comment that my wife grew up in Camelchi.
Did he freeze up?
I think
It's
so.
a happy thought, at least.
And I never thought I would ever say this. And I probably never say it again. Thank God for Facebook.
I would agree with that in that one instance.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'd like to thank my entire team because we're all the ones who get it done. So
That's true. This is this IT effort overall, all the programs you've heard about tonight involves just about everyone at the city. Everyone sees the benefit of it, and everyone's excited about it. Even Tim, even though he's got a ton of work on his plate, we all very much appreciate him and his efforts.
very much.
Hey, and to think, 12 years ago, the city didn't even have direct deposit. So we've come along.
Yeah. Right. All right. Okay, well, if there's nothing else, somebody shoot me the time. I don't have,
7:41.
we'll adjourn this meeting at 7:21?
41.
41.
41, 7:41.
Happy birthday, Jim.
Thank you.
Happy
Have a good
birthday.
evening.